Hi, my name is Laird. I am a marketing student at Biola University, and this semester I had the opportunity to conduct a target market project, which is an extensive project where you conduct research interviews to create a marketing analysis on a specific industry. The industry I chose to study was the athleisure industry, with my two competitors being Lululemon and Viore. And then ultimately, after doing extensive research and interviews about this industry, I conducted my third business, which is called Pace Collective, which I will get into in a moment. Looking at this project at first, I had a very difficult time just jumping straight into it. I didn't really know where to start. I didn't know if I started with interviews or started with research or started conducting my third business, but ultimately I decided to do some research and then jump into my interviews. But when jumping into my interviews, I didn't really use the research that I had already gathered to ask specific questions, which allowed me to get a lot of similar feedback on the competitors or the industry, which made it very hard to write down a lot of information that I was needing. And then ultimately I ran into Gio, which he is an employee at Viore, and he gave me feedback on my interview that I had with him. He said that he had a difficult time with my questions because they were so broad, which made it hard for him to give me specific answers that I was hoping to get. He told me to go back and have specific questions, which ultimately this poured into the rest of my project. I got to reflect on this feedback and critically think about what I can change in my process of asking interviews, which ultimately contained me to go back to my research, jot down specific questions before heading into a store or approaching a customer, which this gave me a lot more information and a lot more feedback that really improved my projects. Because before I was just getting really broad information, and then after receiving that feedback, I was able to ask specific questions for specific parts of my project. And then after doing all this, after problem solving with that issue, then came my third business. I was very excited to get into my third business. As an individual, I'm very passionate about the running world, the running culture, just indulging in that sphere. And when conducting my third business, I decided to go with a running-focused athleisure store because Lululemon and Viore, a lot of the feedback I was getting was there was too much variety and none of their clothes were very specific to the individual certain sport like running, cycling, swimming, etc. So I decided to go with a running store, and I fell in love with all of my first ideas. I made sure to include like my favorite types of clothes, my favorite shoes, my favorite watches, my favorite hats, things of that nature. And I ran into a lot of issues. I was running out of ideas. I brought it up to a few friends and they were like not very interested. And then ultimately this allowed me to call up my close friend and cousin, Chris. Chris is a running influencer. He's very passionate about running just as I am. He's not afraid to give me feedback since he's a close friend, and he was able to call me out on falling in love with a lot of my first ideas, which was very helpful. He gave me feedback on being able to approach customers first before developing my third business, which I had to do with my first two competitors, but ultimately when creating my third business, it gave me difficulty. And Chris encouraged me to go back, look at my interviews, interview more people to be able to conduct a third business that really impacted the running community and allowed my store to be based entirely on run clubs, community, and multiple different pieces of feedback that I got from customers. And this was because I was able to receive feedback, again, from Chris and learn how to ultimately develop a third business that was really gonna impact the target market of my customers. He allowed me to take a step back and critically think about my third business and ultimately create a hyper athletic running store that really fit the needs of this specific community, which ultimately would allow my third business to grow rapidly because it was so specific to what these customers wanted, not so much of what I wanted because I was the one creating the business. So creating this project and going through the extensive process was a lot. I had the ability to learn a lot about myself, about the world of marketing, and ultimately the most important piece of information I got to learn was how to partner with the Lord when working through a project like this. I had a difficult time being able to sit down and really conduct all these interviews and write it all down, and I couldn't have done it on my own strength. So I learned a lot just being able to partner with God, and learn how to critically think, learn how to get feedback, and ultimately just learn how to fit the needs of a customer and be able to build relational processes with those customers. I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm glad to be able to share it with you all, and yeah, thank you.